Oh, hello. Welcome to another Tabletop Impulse video. This is going to be my tournament report for the Kill Team Critical Strike event, which was about a week ago on Saturday the 11th of February. It's taken me about a week because I've been on holiday, which is why the channel's been a little bit quiet, but I'm back now, so we're going to get cracking on with. We've got loads of Kill Team videos in the to-do list, and this was the first one. So the first thing I want to talk about is just have a general overview of the format of the event. So I've waxed lyrical before about how much I enjoy playing at Warhammer World. The facilities are excellent, staff are excellent, the food is excellent. But there were some notable positives and negatives this time compared to previous events. So the last time we attended the Warhammer World event, it was a 4-round structure. For whatever reason, they decided to go back to 3 rounds. So there's 3 rounds here. They did send out an email, as announced previously. We're really hoping. No, sorry, this one. Sorry. Event timings. Again, as clarified previously, the event pack contained a discrepancy in the number of games listed versus the published event schedule. Now, many of you may have planned your trial for the day based around the initial schedule and timings as noted in the event pack. We wanted to confirm this event will only be a 3-round event, matching the schedule of the event pack. Briefly, I'm not sure whether it was on the Eventbrite page or in the PDF. It said it was 3 rounds or 4 rounds, and they didn't quite agree. And because the previous game was 4 rounds, the previous tournament, was 4 rounds, a lot of people assumed this would be 4 rounds. 4 rounds is superior. I don't really understand why they went back to 3, but they did. For me, I still find it worthwhile because I'm not really going to see who's the best at Kill Team. I'm going to have some games of Kill Team. But even then, it will be better to have more games of Kill Team for the money, right? So, a little bit perturbed that they've gone back to 3 rounds. There's also this business with the tacos. So, initially when the event pack was published, it said it was using the standard tactics in the book. And then they released the Critical Ops Tactics cards. And they emailed everyone to say, we're going to be using the Critical Ops Tactics cards, which was great. And I started to practice with those and play loads of games with those so I would know what I was doing and didn't look like a fool. And then about a week before the event, they sent this out. As announced previously, we're really hoping to use the new Critical Ops Tac cards and missions for this event, but we're aware they're not too easy to come across. We're hoping to have resources available for you and ready for the weekend, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, these have not materialised. This means that for the event, we'll be using the missions and tac ops from the core game until the Critical Ops cards become available for all attendees to use in the future. Now, this was really gutting in a number of ways, to be honest. Not least because I've been playing exclusively with the new cards. They are much better. One thing about this event was that it reminded me how much better the new things are compared to the old. The lateness of the this came out on Thursday, I think, before the event, that they changed the format. Really irritating that they decided so late. Like, I understand that Games Workshop is, what I understand is that the tournament organisers really wanted to use the new cards, and the game designer, Elliot, really wanted the new cards to be in use. It's just really, I'm quite angry at Games Workshop as, not that people that run the event per se, but as the company as a whole, because it is their screw-up at not being able to print enough cards when they've made a really major revision and a really major improvement and a really welcome improvement, and everyone that worked on it worked really hard and really well, and it's just such an annoyance that they can't then make enough copies of the really good product that they've made in order to allow their events to use the newer rules. Disappointing. And then what I kind of hear is that the events team wanted to release a PDF of the cards so that people could have that available for them for the events. And presumably what's happened is that someone in senior management has said that they can't do that because then the PDF will get leaked online and it will be like there was a official carte blanche not to buy the cards. So a mess of a situation that could be solved by, the least radical solve is Games Workshop simply make enough of the thing that they want us to buy. More radically, they could have produced the rules for free. I mean, they are already online for free. Like, lots of people that play independent tournaments are playing using websites that are out there that have the new TAC Ops deck on them. So, just really, really frustrating and irritating. In the positives corner, the tables were really improved. So I have got a picture here. Technically not allowed to take pictures of Warhammer World, but I've just included one small one. Hopefully I get away with it. They included a picture here. They've created objective markers of their own. These are nice cardboard objective markers that match in with the table, that have a little orc skull on the middle that tells you the exact centre of the marker, and they tell you the correct radius for all the objectives. I think they've produced these in-house. These are really nice in that they blend in perfectly with the table. These were blue tacked down to the table as well, which is something that Glass Half Dead is always advocating for in his coverage about blue tacking stuff down. So that's really good. And then they'd also marked out the deployment zones with tape on all the different boards, and so that you knew that the inside edge of the tape was the edge of your deployment zone. Really, really positive mood from the events team here. Really made the startup set for the game much quicker and more seamless. Really, really very pleased. So, two negatives, but one really big positive from the Warhammer World Events team there. And I think the things that are negative are really, really easy for them to fix if they wish to. Okay. Right. So round one, I was against a guy called David Presho, and we were playing Master of the Terminals on Chalnath terrain. So David played a good game. A skilled player. I lost 8 to his 14. We were really close on primaries, 5-6, but he maxed his tacos. I scored one taco point. Basically, I don't want to solely blame the old tac ops thing because I'm not that good at kill team, but I did completely mess up my tac ops. I took triangulate, retrieval, and seize ground. I completely kind of forgot that retrieval is awful and difficult to score compared to recover item, which is what I've been practicing with sending my dog to go and get the little token. And then also Master the Terminals, one of the old missions, which is widely regarded as a really biased mission in favour of the attacker. And David was the attacker, so he got to turn off the objective in my kill zone at the start of turn 1, which does provide him with a little bit of a boost. But I can't even blame luck for that. It was a decision I made. I actually won the roll-off, and I picked to be the defender because there was a big piece of terrain with advantage in one of the deployment zones, and which is how games work. We tried to balance Master the Terminals, right? The deployment zones were very obviously biased, and the sort of spectre of my game in the last event against Carlos loomed large, where I let him have a big vantage point, and it made me really pay for it for the whole game. So I wanted that vantage point, but it wasn't enough to swing the game for me. And as much as I complain about technical things, about the tac ops, and about my forgetting how the mission works, it's worth saying that I still think David would have won, even if he'd been playing with the new rules. It might have been a little bit of a closer game. David was a very skilled player, played his warp cover really well. So it was a fun game. I enjoyed it. I'm just a little bit irritated still, and I've already talked about it too much, a little bit irritated still about the tac ops thing, which I at least partially blame for this loss here. Lunchtime. So the lunch, again, as usual for Warhammer World, was included in the ticket price. It was food from the staff canteen. I had sausage, chips and gravy again, same as last time. There was a lot of choice, curry, chicken, mushroom pie. So just a little bit to add here. My usual partner in crime at these events, Zimbad, who people who use BCP will know is Paul Allen, had been struck down by Grandfather Nurgle the day before the event, so I was travelling with another good friend of mine and channel member, Simon Green, who, isn't previously been that interested in tournament play, but because I had the ticket and a hotel room, and I'm like, well, do you fancy a day out? So he came along. He enjoys a beer. He's a bit of a beer aficionado, so we had the opportunity to have a pint of the one of the house beers. So for those of you that have never been to Warhammer World, you may not know this, and I know that the American viewers may find this kind of incredible because the drinking culture is quite different over there, but at Warhammer World, they have 4 beers that are specially produced for Games Workshop by Nottingham Brewery, sort of themed around the Warhammer World. So we had a pint of the Dragon's Hellfire. I mean, it's pretty nice, pretty nice, pretty drinkable beer. It was a golden IPA. I'm not saying it's worth the trip just for the special beers alone. Like they're nice enough, pretty drinkable. They're not unforgettably good, but they are there and they are interesting. And I think it's worth mentioning because I'm always kind of amused that they opened the Warhammer Citadel, didn't they, in America, which is kind of the American equivalent of Warhammer World. But the Americans don't get a pub, they get a cafe. Because for whatever reason, I'm not saying you guys don't drink alcohol over there, but you don't seemingly like to mix alcohol with Warhammer for, I guess, cultural reasons. Perhaps some Americans in the comments can let me know why in the States you don't tend to have a pint with your Warhammer games over your lunchtime. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but yeah, Drogon's Hellfire was an enjoyable little drink, and so fortified the games of Kill Team continued. So round 2, I was playing against Beric Garrett. Now, I've had the privilege of playing against Beric before. It was my last round opponent in the previous tournament I went to, and he's an extremely nice chap. Very kind of talkative and welcoming and knowledgeable about the game. He was once again playing his commandos. We were playing escalating hostilities on Octarius terrain. I won 1913. So I played Beric before Warhammer World. Last time it was a very, very close but enjoyable game. This time it was a little bit less close. I guess because, our skill levels had remained about the same, and our teams had remained the same, and since I last played him, Star Striders had received a not insignificant buff in the balanced data slate, so yeah. I also kind of dialed in my TAC Ops a bit more. I decided to revert to classic TAC Ops choices, so I stacked Seize Ground and Central Control, and I also took Triangulate, which was a better choice on this map, where I could score 1 point with it right off the bat, so yeah, it was a great back and forth game though. Beric was very aware of the support assets and was very careful all the time to keep his orcs spaced out the sort of 2 circle, which is good. Because he knew that I had an asset with a blast of blue, so that was good. We did run a little bit over time, but the nice thing about Warhammer World is that the breaks are so generous that if you overrun by 5 or 6 minutes, it's not really any mind. Like, I see people online advocating for chess clocks and things, and maybe that is appropriate in rare events where the rounds are very closely packed together. But with Warhammer World, you get very generous breaks between every single round. So if you have a little bit of an overflow, obviously not taking the absolute Mickey, but if you have a little bit of overrun, like nobody cared. So that was good. And then round 3 was versus a guy called Lewis Richardson. Lewis was playing Intercession. We were playing on Duel of Wits on the Vertigus terrain, which is always nice because I only ever played Vertigus terrain at Warhammer World. It's not a terrain set I own. I won 1911. I was pretty fearful going into this game because he always Zimbad, Zimbad always kicks my backside with this team. He plays Intercession a lot in all our practice games. But I was able to get shots off in this game, including killing 2 of the intercessors with my Archaeotech Beam, which really, against a 6-man team, if you can get the 2 kills with the Archaeotech Beam, then you're going to be in a good position. I did chat with Lewis before the game. I didn't want it to be a gotcha win. He understood how Star Striders work, and he said, yeah, he had. In fact, he played against them in his previous round. So I guess he was aware of what I could do. He just hadn't quite learned how to counter it. So maybe 2 games against Star Striders under his belt, that's a learning experience of how careful you need to be with intercessors not to be able to get line of sight. There are a lot of models in the Star Striders team that can draw the line of sight for that Archaeotech Beam. It is strong. I think it is something that you can play around, but against an elite team, if they get it off on you, then it can make the thing a little bit of an uphill struggle because you've got so few miniatures. And it is one of the few things in the game that can reasonably reliably one-hit an intercessor who are normally just ridiculously tanky. Right, and then the final scores. So, I finished... Let me get the pen. Let me get the pen. So I'm here, 23. This is me, Phil Johnson. There we go. On a loss and 2 wins. My good friend and travelling companion... Oops. My good friend and travelling companion, Simon Green, is here on 55. But, you know, he was bringing Phobos. He'd never been to a tournament before. You know, I think he did well not to come dead last, to be perfectly honest. You know, my first tournament was an absolute car fire. So, good. And then you can see here, there's, you know, the winner, Lawland, apparently a quote from Hungary, just to come to this tournament, which is pretty... I think it's really cool that we have that kind of international pull. He was playing Euclidean Star Striders. I'm really sad that I didn't. It would have been really nice to play against a really skilled Star Striders player in the mirror match, so that you know, to pick up some tips and tricks, which would have been really nice. But yeah, so that's there. We got Bart. Charles is. So it's funny, we got both the guys from Can You Roll a Crit. Charles finished 5th, which is really good. John sort of crit himself, actually finished 28th. So I finished above crit, which is, you know, either I'm a better player at kill team than crit, which doesn't seem particularly likely, given that he's been invited to like an invitational, or there is actually a problem, isn't there, at Warhammer World with their 3-round events not really being adequate to sort the best players to the top. Then again, like I always tell my students when they're going into their exams, an exam is only a measure of how well you did on that day at that exam. It's not really a measure of how good you are. And it's the same with tournaments. They're only really a measure of how well you did on the day, and not really a measure of how good you are overall. It's your record over time that is the important thing, right? It's how well you do over a time period with lots of data points. So I'm not really pointing that out in any kind of meaningful way to actually claim to be better than crit. That would be absurd. It's slightly funny though, and you have to allow me the slight kind of, oh yeah, you know, I came ahead, so that's good. Sorry, hang on, there we go. So yeah, loads of other names that I recognise, people I've played against before. We got Peter Worsley down here, and Matt Godlington. These are people that I've played from before and been soundly beaten by. No Spanish guys coming across this time. I don't think. I guess they can't come to every single Warhammer World tournament, as nice as that would be, because they're great guys. But yeah, it was a great event, and I had good fun. I really hope the next one is 4 rounds with the current tactical objectives and missions, and the splitting into groups of 3 for 3 groups for deployment. I really miss those things. It's such a good improvement to the game, the critical operations card pack, and massive like credit. Like it's hard to be. I'm trying to praise Games Workshop at the same time as criticise them, because I want to say, you know, it wouldn't if Elliot and his team hadn't done such a really good job in improving Kill Team, right, then it wouldn't be such an annoyance that we couldn't play the improved version of Kill Team at the official events. And so that's like, on the one hand, massive praise for the Kill Team studio and Elliot for doing such a really, really good job with something, and then massive frustration at this other part of the company for not producing enough cards. I've talked about this enough, but I really am quite irritated. So it would be nice if we were using the current tactical objectives. I'm going to have to try and find out with Warhammer Fest in a minute. Warhammer Fest is being run by another team. So you got the Warhammer Worlds event team, which are one group of guys. The Warhammer Fest event is being run by the Global Events team, which is another group of guys. So we'll have to see whether that's going to carry on and use the current, or whether we're going to have to go back to the old cards. Hopefully by Fest they'll have got more print runs of the card packs, right? You'd think a company could manage this, but I don't know. I'm pretty undecided at the moment if I should stick with Star Striders or pivot to a new team. You know, I like to play a team in 2 events in a row and then evaluate how I'm doing with them. And on the one hand, I think I did quite. This might be my best event performance, potentially, with the Star Striders. But I'm also finding them just slightly the problem is they're now being widely said as being like the top most filthy and disgusting and broken team. I never like playing a team in that position, because then when you don't win or do really well, it's like, not only did you not win or do really well, but it's almost like, oh, you couldn't even win. Like, I had the same issue with Novitiates when people like Crit were really talking up how broken they were before they got nerfed. Like, there's almost a sense of, oh, you can't even win with them. So I tend to try and shy away from those teams for that reason, because I'm not really someone with a credible shot at podiuming. Like, I aspire to it for sure, but I don't want to take a team that is so far and above kind of 55% win rate globally, just because of those accusations of, oh, well, you're playing the most broken thing and you still can't win. Like, you're trying really hard, you still can't get there. That's kind of depressing. So I'm considering pivoting. I'm thinking of 3 teams. I'm thinking of Dark Eldar, Kazakin, and Arbites. The Dark Eldar look really good in the previews, and they look like a really simple team to play. I've got a really cool paint scheme in mind, so I'm going to think they're going to be my next project anyway. Whether I take them to Fest or I take the Star Striders to Fest, I'm not sure. The Kazakin, I also have a paint scheme in mind. I think Kazakin might be really underrated. I'm not saying they're really, really good. I'm just saying they're not as like bottom shelf awful as a lot of people think they are. I think they're actually a decent middle of the pack team. So that's tempting. Now, Arbites, I really wanted to play Arbites when the idea of Arbites came out. Looking at the previews from Arbites, one thing that's really clear is that Arbites are going to need a lot of models, a lot of roster building, and a lot of like pre-game noodling and consensus about what the best way is to run Arbites. And I don't feel like I want to do that. I don't feel like I want to contribute to the discourse of what is the best way to play an Arbites team, simply because I don't get that many games in. Like, I'm not going to get that many games in between now and Fest with everything else to move things around and change things around. But moreover, like, it's going to be so difficult. It's going to be so difficult to get that second box Arbites for the longest time, because again, Games Workshop, they make these wonderful products that we want, and then they just make like 5 of them. So, on the other hand, I really like the idea of Arbites. In terms of the miniatures, I like the lore and the fluff. But then, in terms of what I've seen of the rules, the way they play doesn't necessarily. It's not jumping out to me as being really appealing. Whereas the Dark Eldar is, for whatever reason. I mean, I main Dark Eldar in Kill Team 2018 as well, but I also do think there's something with the Kazakin, so maybe I'll pivot to Dark Eldar or Kazakin. I may even decide to pivot to Arbites. As much as I sound like I've talked myself out of it there, I do go backwards and forwards. This is just what I happen to be thinking when the microphone's running. Or I might stick with Star Striders after I've had my best tournament performance with them. My biggest issue with the Star Striders, and it's a silly thing, is they're not winning the penny competition. They've gone in twice. They always get, I want to have like another go, like paint a new thing. It's the hobby thing, right? And plus my Star Striders, annoyingly, like the little aerials come off the engineer's little Auspex and disappeared, and the little end of the cane has come off Lucidia Vane. Like, I think I said this in a previous video, because they're cast out of that red coloured plastic from the original release, I feel like they're more brittle than a normal Games Workshop miniature, and that is just slightly bugging at the back of my mind as well, because I try to put a lot of effort into my hobby, and then when models break and aren't looking the best that they could look, that irritates me as well. Let's just talk a little about future events. So, Mrs. TI, myself, and Little Miss TI will be in Warhammer World for the open day on the 4th of March. We're going to be there from 10 o'clock in the morning for, a couple of hours. So if you're going to be there to say hi, I'm never entirely sure what we're going to do at the open day, what there will be in terms of events. It's only a cheapish event. The biggest cost is going to be getting there. But we'll probably spend far too much money, and get the freebies that you get for spending far too much money during a store anniversary, which is always going to be fun and interesting. So yeah, there's that. The tickets are available for that if you're interested. It'd be nice to see some people from the... Always nice to see people from the channel, to be fair, at these events. There is Kill Team Shadows of War at Warhammer World on Friday the 31st of March. I was... Actually, someone who follows and watches the channel did actually want to ask me, "Oh, are you going to the next one?" I can't do a Friday. I can't get the day off work. I'm a teacher. I personally, I hope, it feels horrible to wish failure on them, but I really hope that fewer people are able to go to this Friday thing, because I want GW to drop this idea of weekday kill team events at Warhammer World into the bin, because if they continue to run them on weekdays, then it just means I won't be able to go to them unless they happen to hit the half terms or the school holidays. I just won't be able to go to them at all. I know there's people with office jobs and things that can book holidays. Maybe you use a day of your more flexible holiday, and you can book off a day in the week, and then people like that better, because then they're sacrificing a booked holiday day and not a weekend day when they're with their kids or whatever. So I understand that for a lot of other people it's preferable, but it just can't be done. Can't be done. But I will be at Warhammer Fest for the Kill Team Grand Tournament at the end of April in Manchester. I'm doing 3 days at Warhammer Fest. I'm doing 2 days at the Kill Team Grand Tournament, and then 1 day of like a hobby challenge or something, I think. I forget what I've even paid for now. It was that long ago. There are still Grand Tournament tickets available for Warhammer Fest. It is in Manchester, at Manchester Central. Mrs. T and myself are only able to go because my mother-in-law lives about 40 minutes away in Stockport, so we're kind of able to stay there for free and have a free babysitter as well while we're at the Kill Team, while we're at Warhammer Fest. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I seem to have rambled for like over 27 minutes now, so that's good. I've still not got my copy of Soul Shackle, but I will start putting out some content based on the rules previews tomorrow. In Fair Play to Games Workshop, I think the reason I've not got my copy of Soul Shackle is because of the postal strike that was Thursday and Friday of this week. So that is what it is, Postmen deserve a decent wage, but I also want my Warhammer, so fair play to the postman, but I haven't got the stuff, so I can't do any model assembly videos for you or anything like that. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again next time. Do leave me a comment, a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. That's the most important thing that you could do. Like, let's get to 2K subscribers. Let's go. And of course, if you really wanted to, you can become a member of the channel and give me some money every month for some reason. Maybe you just have too much money, and I can help you with that. That's a problem that I can solve for you. All right. Cheery, bye. Bye.